Okay, hey, good afternoon. My name is Quing Lee. I'm with my good buddy Tom Brennan, who's the cameraman today. We're the Chicago Horn Loudspeaker guys. And today we have the distinctive honor of interviewing the owner and proprietor, chief technician, everything of Stereo Rehab, Mr. Casper. Now, Stereo Rehab, many people in Chicago consider this to be the mecca of vintage audio. When you walk into this showroom, it's not really a showroom.
We
It's
don't
more,
sell.
Yeah, he doesn't sell, but it's like a museum full of 60s, 70s, 80s classic component pieces, all working, all lit up with the lights blinking and everything. So if you guys have never been here, I highly recommend a visit, even if you have nothing that you want Casper to work on, whether in terms of repairs or upgrades. So anyway,
Well, we don't do any mods or upgrades. We do everything to original design.
thank you for clarifying that. But yeah, and Casper is a Fisher fan, a Scott fan, and of course he's a big JBL fan, as I found out personally visiting his place many times. And every time I walk in, he has his music playing through these gigantic JBL monitors. I don't know, the first time I was here, he had these JBL 4430s with the butt cheeks.
I remember those right there.
Those are phenomenal, and I became a big fan. I actually own a pair of butt cheeks, but now he's got something way better. He's got these classic JBL L300s, and he's got these professional JBL monitors. So, you know, Tom and I just recently did a couple of episodes on the history of JBL, and I think it would be a good follow-up for us to interview one of the JBL authorities in the Chicago area.
Come on, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I like JBL.
Well, it's true. It's true. So, you know, my first question to you is your humongous collection. You obviously love audio. What got you into this in the first place?
First of all, nice seeing you again, Quing.
Uh,
And thanks for having us.
yeah, forgot again.
What got me into it? Well, when I was little, my brother and my mother and I would go to my Gram's house and visit on the weekends.
Okay.
And she lived in the area of Lawrence and Ashland. And this is back in very late 70s. And there was a shop over there,
Okay.
a repair shop, long gone. And I used to wander the neighborhood, and I
Yeah.
found the place, and I went in there. Initially, I would ask for old broken stuff, but then I started working there. He put me to work.
Oh,
He's like,
really?
well, I can't get rid of this damn kid, so let's put him
Okay.
to work.
Okay.
And I was 9, so he was pretty trusting. Cool guy.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where it all started. It
Wow.
just was a curiosity of how things worked. What makes a picture appear on phosphorus on a CRT screen?
Yeah.
Why does sound come out of a speaker when you put electricity into it?
Yeah.
The concept I didn't get. I was a kid. But I knew that there was just a curiosity of what made things work.
Okay.
And mechanically, watches, whatever, you know.
So you're a natural born engineer, technician type?
I mean, technically you could say that, but I don't know where it comes from. It just, ever since, my mom's got baby pictures of me, like a toddler, taking apart flashlights. Nobody said, here, take it apart. I just had this curiosity, you know.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't know.
So to go from the old TVs and working in a repair shop to everything we see here, did music have anything to do? I mean, music had to
Sound.
drive you. Okay, sound.
I think sound would be a better descriptive.
Okay.
As a kid, you don't really appreciate or even acknowledge music
Right.
at that age. I mean, you might dig it, but you don't really, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was more fascinated by the sounds
Okay.
that would come out. Maybe a little autistic, who knows? But the whole thing was, no, really, who knows? But the thing is it was fascinating to take a piece that was non-functional. At least this is how I perceived it and enjoyed it,
Okay.
and then make it functional, and then be able to enjoy and hear your efforts in your work.
So what did you use to hear those efforts?
As far as speakers,
As far as source.
well, when I was a kid, whatever the shop had that I was at.
Okay.
So, and it was this,
What did they play?
He didn't play music per se, but it was just a crappy pair of speakers and
Okay.
a crappy receiver on the bench, and you'd plug your stuff into it, and like a CD player, whatever I happened to be working on.
Okay.
Later on, though, I started hanging out at thrift stores.
Okay.
And I would go into, in particular, the one in Lawrence and Spalding. It used to be in Amvets, right next
Oh,
to the
yeah,
train
yeah, yeah.
station there.
Yeah.
And you'd walk in the front door and go straight to the back, and that's where all the audio stuff was. So I'd walk in, and I'd go right to it. And in fact, those two pieces on the shelf, those two Heath kits you see,
Oh.
I got those in 1989 as a
Okay.
pair from that Amvets, and I still
Okay.
have them to this day. So if you ask what did it, that's when I was like 16,
Oh,
17.
that.
Those
Wow.
exact ones.
So what did you use as speakers back then?
At that time, well, let's move to my teens.
Okay.
When I was around 16, that'd be 88. So yeah, my uncle, who was a big audio guy, no connection at all, he would forbid me to touch a stereo. He had a lot of audio gear, and he unfortunately passed away.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you. He was, Vince was his name. And when Vince passed away, all of his audio stuff just remained at my Gram's house in the basement, his audio stuff. And so I begged and pleaded for my Gram to give it to me,
Okay.
which she did. It was a pair of HPM 100 speakers. It was
Okay, Pioneer, yeah.
Pioneer, a Kenwood KR9400 receiver,
That's good. Receiver.
a dual 1229, and a Kai reel-to-reel. There was an 8-track, which I still have. There was something else too. He had the SA 9800 and integrated, which was brand new in a box.
Oh, yeah, that's a Pioneer also.
with the
Yeah,
floor
yeah.
scan.
Okay.
So that's kind of what kicked it off. And
So the HPM 100s were designed by Bart Locanti
there was
from JBL. So
it was really
think-
it was Pioneer, in my opinion. It was Pioneer's answer to the L100.
okay.
The Aquaplast, the overall Sonics. It was trying to get like market share. That's what I always say to people.
Okay.
And that's, again, I'm not an authority.
Okay.
but
did you like the Pioneer, the way it sounds? I
Now,
don't-
now no.
Okay.
But I'm afraid who in my family might see this video, and those HPM 100s wound up in the trunk of my 79 Bonneville with the boom, boom, boom. And they were loud, and that was their fate. So
Okay.
I regret that. I really
So,
do. So they were loud, let's put it that way.
so how did you go from that to, what was your next step from that? What was your next set of speakers? You put the HPM 100s in the trunk of a car,
Then
which is preposterous.
it is, but I
Yeah.
was a kid. What did I know?
Okay,
you know?
okay.
And I do regret it.
All
So
right.
please, people, don't get mad at me for
Yeah,
that.
we're going to get a lot of comments.
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
that stupid guy.
Yeah.
The next pair of speakers after that were either a pair of Fisher XP7Cs, which are crap, or there was my first pair of clips, which are Heresies. And
Okay.
I remember they were black, and it was a 12-inch three-way.
Yep.
Sounded awful to me.
So that was your first horn-loaded speaker.
First horn-loaded would probably be, yes. That would
Okay.
be right, yeah.
Okay.
Very first.
So did they turn you into horns? Did they turn you off to horns?
Well, when I had the Pioneers in the trunk, I had lots of bass.
Okay.
But I had no highs and mids.
Okay.
And
And the Heresies have lots of highs and mids, but no bass.
correct. Which in the house is fine, but I was in my car all the time. You're a kid.
Okay.
So I found an old console stereo in an alley, an old Magnavox.
Okay.
And I ripped the speakers out of it. The woofers I didn't need, but the tweeters. There were a pair of horn tweeters that were really long, very similar to what this.
Similar to this. Okay.
but
but longer.
It was longer. It rang just like that.
Right.
Same motor assembly, but it was a lot longer.
Okay, so this has an Alnico magnet to it. Okay.
And it went into the 6x9 openings, facing the rear window, aiming right. And it sounded horrible, but it was loud.
Yeah.
And in the late 80s, people
was the
didn't
thing.
they didn't have that. Everybody
Okay.
had might have bass or they have a static box, but they didn't have good tight bass that the Pioneers had,
Okay.
and loudness and throw.
So
that opened my
basically,
eyes.
you put home speakers into a trunk of a car
Yes, that's exactly right.
to get the volume that you wanted.
Volume and fidelity.
All right,
And I knew how
okay.
the speaker sounded, the
Okay.
HPMs. And mind you, I disconnected the tweeters and the mids. I only ran the woofers and the cabinets. So there was no mids and highs coming out of it. It was all just the bass.
Okay, so what was your next step after these Magnavox compression drivers /horns?
Then it would have been the Klipsch, and those actually, I forgot where I got those, but I did some kind of a crazy deal. It was those. Then I got into EV,
Okay, so Klipsch to EV.
electro
All right.
voice, and I was going for efficiency and volume again.
Right.
Now the EVs that I had were direct radiating cones, obviously, but they were also horn loaded for the highs. And I think they were S15. They were S1503s. So they had an EVX15,
Okay.
a VMR mid, which was loud as hell. Again, a kid, loud.
Yeah.
And the ST.
Vented mid-range
That's
cone.
exactly right. The
Yeah.
it's the same motor as the woofer with the small cone, same 2.5-inch coil with a little slot,
Okay.
VMR, and then it had the ST350B tweeter, which was I think it was a CD horn. a CD
Constant
horn.
directive. Okay.
Yeah.
And
that
this
was-
is still in your car.
No. That's the car was that. I went in a different direction.
All
with
right,
it.
okay.
This is what was in my house or my
Oh,
bedroom.
okay. I thought you were going to say a van.
No, well-
a full-size van.
That would be pretty crazy.
Yeah.
After the EVs, I got a pair of L-Tech Voice of the Theaters.
Okay, the 87s.
I think they were A7s, I
Okay.
believe. They had a big opening in the bottom. The horn load of 15.
Yep.
16, I think it was. I think it was a 16-inch woofer. There was some
16-inch
weird
frame and a 15.
Well, yeah, they
Right.
had a 15-inch cone with a 16-inch
frame,
Yeah.
and it had a little vent in the center dust cap. Blew those up.
Oh my God, yeah.
But those were in my bedroom, and I
Okay.
ran those off of a Phase Linear 700B, and it was stupid. And my bedroom was like maybe 14 by 12.
That's a pretty good sized bedroom.
Well, yeah, but not for speakers that big.
No.
I mean, it was a
No.
little insane.
Yeah, yeah.
So EV, tried some Cerwin Vegas in there.
Okay. So you blew the Altex up.
I blew the woofers up, and I reloaded them with EV. I put
Oh, that's not, yeah. So those woofers, like I said, handle like 50 watts.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
and it was the Alnico 4-spoke black basket.
Yeah.
Blew those up. I loaded them up with some EVX 150As that I bought brand new.
Okay.
When they were new. And then those went somewhere. I have no idea. Tried Cerwin Vega. Cerwin Vega was just loud.
Yeah,
much
there's
like
no
the-
fidelity,
Yeah,
right?
it's just loud.
Okay, we're going to get beat up for that one too by Cerwin Vega fans. All right.
I mean, I like them all, but
Yeah.
that brings us to JBL, I guess.
Yeah, so you went through Clips, EV, Cerwin Vega, and back in the 80s,
Now now we're already into the mid 90s.
mid 90s.
Yeah.
And so you found JBL how?
I worked for a place. I was still EV. I worked for a place that was a repair facility,
Okay,
and he was a JBL dealer
okay,
and a Crown dealer.
Okay.
No bearing on this now, but I listened to the speakers that were made by JBL, knew what I had, and mine were proper. They were not jerry-rigged. They were all as they should sound. So I'm
Yeah.
hearing an accurate representation. And then I heard the JBL, and I was like, this sounds right to me.
okay.
I had, somewhere in there, I had a pair of L100s, a pair of 4311s. I don't like, those sound horrible to me.
Yeah, those are like 70s and 80s, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Those just kind of came through my stall.
Yeah,
But
those speakers lasted like 4 hours in my house. And I knew they had to be gone.
they
Yeah.
don't sound good.
No.
It's not even a true three-way speaker. It's a full range into the woofer, high pass, mid, high pass tweeter. It's not band pass. It's a two-way, three driver speaker.
Yeah, yeah.
Horrible.
So mid 90s. Do you remember which JBL model?
The first ones that I got, or the
Yeah.
first ones I heard,
The first ones that you heard that said I gotta have this.
the Yuri 813C, the same ones I have here.
Wait, you got those? Okay.
Not
well,
the same speakers.
All right, we're gonna have to revisit that.
It
All
was-
right, okay.
Those exact speakers in he had a studio in his,
Okay.
in his store, his business,
All right.
on a Crown K2, and I remember sitting in on a couple of sessions. I knew it was all JBL loaded.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, this stuff sounds good.
Yeah.
And then I
they
got
can
my,
play really loud.
oh yeah, well, they're 150 watts.
All right.
But I mean, you don't need a lot of power. And they
Okay.
were built into the soffit as they should be. I'm trying to think of my first pair of JBLs. It wasn't those, although I would have loved it. I think it was probably the 4725s. 4725 is
Oh
a
yeah.
2214 woofer, this tweeter on a different lens, a baby cheek.
Okay.
The smaller version of what I used to have here.
Yeah.
It's basically the smaller version of what I had
Is
here.
that the one with two 12-inch woofers?
Single 12.
Single 12. Okay.
2214
All
with
right.
the 2416 motor on the smaller biradio lens.
So basically a professional
Yes.
speaker.
And
All
you'll
right.
notice I'm going in that direction
Yeah,
where all
yeah,
my stuff
yeah.
has been not home.
Yeah. Wow. And that was basically your entry into JBL for your home.
Yes, pretty much. And then it got bigger and bigger from there.
My goodness. So I
this-
hate to ask, but how many JBL sets of speakers do you own? Besides everything we see here, we see these L100, L300s, which everybody loves.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
everybody wants a pair. These guys.
getting mine.
You have like 3 pairs of these in your shop, right?
I actually have 4 pairs total.
Oh my-
That's
okay.
the AS2215. It's a 2226 woofer, and the tweeter is a 2446J on a 2380 lens. And that's the A, not the A, or the 2380 non-A.
Okay.
This has got the shiny. The other one is matte, like I have in back. and at
Okay,
home.
okay. And you have more of this at home.
I have a double version of this that I use in my living room.
All right.
which is basically two 2226s in a common cabinet, and then a the 2450 motor, which is a neodymium, I'm using on that lens at home for weight. But it's the same sonic signature. I build my own crossovers and voice them myself.
Okay.
Just like these and those. These are factory original down here, the L300.
So I noticed all these have 2-inch throats in them.
These do, yeah.
Is there a reason why you decided to settle on 2-inch versus the 1-inch? I noticed we have some
I go both ways.
actual drivers here. Okay.
I go both ways.
Now
and
the first ones that you mentioned had the 1-inch driver, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
and
what
then now you are using something that's probably 4 to 5 times the size.
Well, there's a reason for that. This is a 1-inch throat. There's also a 1.5-inch throat,
Okay.
like a 2447. This is a 2446. This is what we use here in the store, both for the audition,
Okay.
on the workbench, in the rear, and there's a reason for that. It's extremely efficient for horns,
Yeah.
as horns are. But more importantly is people don't need to beat the crap out of their equipment when they audition it. So when a customer comes in, where their equipment would go is right here.
Yeah.
They only play through these. They're not running them through this.
Okay,
Or my
okay.
4412s.
Okay.
And the reason is it'll tickle their itch,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of our customers are older.
Okay.
So because of that, our hearing rolls off. It's natural.
Yeah.
These tickle their fancy,
Okay.
and they're rather aggressive. They're crossed over higher than, usually they're crossed over at 1.2. I cross them over around 3.5.
Wow.
To roll off some of the beaminess of the mid-range.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of a gap at the crossover point, but that gap flattens out in the end. And people can get on it, and they don't have to worry about hurting anything. You're not going to hurt these.
Okay.
So that's one of the main reasons we use them here in the front.
Yeah, because JBL can handle a lot of power. So how high do the woofers go up in these if you have reworked the crossovers?
These ones here are going to about 900
Okay.
on these here. And then there's a slight gap. I'm sorry, not 900, 1.2 on the bottom end, and then the top one picks up around 3.5, 3.
Okay. Okay.
So it's basically getting the upper bass in a very, very low mid-range where it starts to break up as any cone driver would.
Okay. And you don't see a need for a tweeter or a super tweeter in these?
Well, I mean, again, the extension that most people's hearing is good to is 16K.
Okay.
And these are good to 16 easily, despite
right.
being a 2-inch throat.
Wow. So after all this, man, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. So so after all your experience with EV clips, what is well, I shouldn't say one thing. What are some of the major qualities that have you settled on the JBLs? Basically the loudness, the power, the cleanliness,
The simplest way I could put it, and what I truly believe,
yeah.
is, and I know people will disagree with this,
Okay.
but I believe that JBL, and I tried all these different speakers, not
Yeah.
just those particular models of those brands. I mean, I deal with equipment.
Right. You
So I
see
see
a lot of
A
equipment.
lot
yeah.
of equipment.
Yeah.
So I've had the opportunity to try here and audition as much as you guys would. A lot of equipment. JBL, in my opinion, does what a loudspeaker is supposed to do. You put electricity into it, it converts it to mechanical energy that we perceive as sound.
Mm-hmm.
They're very efficient. There are drawbacks, of course, with efficiency, but they're very linear in
Okay.
my opinion. Power compression is important to me because I beat the shit out of my equipment.
Okay.
So I don't want to have the impedance going up as the coil goes. Coil
up,
impedance
yeah.
heats up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So power compression is rather low, but in a proper enclosure,
All right.
properly tuned, and rolling off anything below resonance, which we do. We have a high pass on there, so anything below 35 does not go into those speakers.
Okay.
Anything below that is just wasting power and over excursion. So
Okay.
in short, JBL does what I think a speaker should do. It reproduces electricity in the form of sound and does it with minimal.
Distortion.
Well, all speakers have distortion.
Okay.
But minimal. What would be the best way to put it? Molestation. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Speaking of vans earlier.
So obviously you own a lot of JBLs here. You have a lot at home.
Yeah.
Is there a bucket list JBL that you would like to own, or you feel like you've reached the end of the line? This is it. There's no need to go further.
I never would have sought out a pair of L300s. It's not my normal thing of JBL.
Yeah, this is a lot of people's bucket list.
It is. It's a great speaker. We had custom stands made for them. These are
Okay.
totally restored. Mike is a gentleman who does all of our wood and
Okay.
customers. But I bought them just because the 4412s that were usually here,
Yeah.
which work perfectly, and they're
Okay.
perfect, obviously, and they sounded great. I said, fuck it, let's put something crazy in here. And, sorry. And,
Okay.
and it was kind of for, I'm shits and grins, but we've been rewarded with really good sound.
Yeah,
So
yeah. This
ni-
tweeter here is amazing.
Oh, that-
Probably JBL's best.
That thing actually, when we first played these, we
Yeah.
ran them off my Marantz 8B,
Yeah.
and it sounded really good. And then I pulled that out, and I build my own amplifiers from scratch
Oh,
using,
okay.
using an existing chassis. I put my own circuit in there.
Bogan. Okay.
But that's just the chassis.
Okay.
100 watt per cabinet. These things are incredible. And we find ourselves, Nigel and I, playing just these now, whereas usually we have all four going.
Okay.
But they sound that good.
So
And they're-
they have your own crossovers in them, or they
No,
stock?
that's totally factory original. No mods on those.
No mod. No Nelson Pass version
No,
of this.
none of that. No, these are, as JBL designed them, that is how they remain.
Okay. This is a Bartolo Conti or Greg Timbers design. You know?
I don't know.
This is the first one.
Okay.
So I think that's the Timbers one, isn't it?
I can't say. But it's a studio monitor in furniture clothing.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's a 4333A.
That's with the lens and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was for the home. Just
Yes,
like the
it looks
L100
great.
was kind of the same thing. It was an
Yeah.
answer to people who wanted that studio sound in their home, which
Yeah.
ugh.
Which they fail miserably. Okay. So, do you? I mean. So you do not crave things like the Everest, the K2, the S.
No, I mean, I respect
9000
them.
series. Okay.
I respect them. I think they're beautiful. I
Yeah.
think they're statements and they're pieces of history, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But for what I listen to, the kind of music I listen to, the applications, like I think I sent you some pictures of my movie room at home.
No, you did not.
In the email, I sent you some clips.
Okay, I will look for it
Yeah.
and maybe try to include it in the video.
But you should actually take a look. And the cars, it's all
Okay.
JBL loaded.
Wow,
But
okay.
in the house, I know I sent the pictures to you. Anyway, in the house, I had no place for it, but it would be a waste.
Okay.
In the store here, it would be cool to have for a wow factor when customers come in.
Yeah.
But again, it would be a waste.
Yeah, you're talking
So-
about $100,000 for the speaker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
the money is, I mean, I could probably afford to get a pair of those that need work. But the truth
Okay.
is, I think I'd rather somebody who would truly appreciate it would own that and not waste it on a place where it's
Okay.
a commercial.
Okay.
place.
So you've owned a lot of classic JBLs from the 90s, 80s,
70s.
70s. Are you familiar at all to JBL's current line? And you have
A
any
little
opinions?
bit.
Okay.
I have some opinions.
Do you see them in your store?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. No, I mean the motors they use are entirely different than what the old SFGs or regular
Yeah.
VGCs. So it's a totally different motor. But I think what's happening is people. I left out a pair of C36s I had in my kitchen. A
Okay.
pair of kitchen speakers, a pair of C36s
Jeez.
with the 15, the one I think D130.
D130.
D130 it had,
D130,
and then the
okay.
Bullet, and those didn't stay. They sounded horrible. They sounded like
Okay.
shit. Yeah.
All right. All right. I'm
left
glad
those
I
out.
didn't say that. All right.
I mean, it's cool, but it was not appropriate in my house.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, the new stuff, yes and no, only because I think a lot of companies, JBL included,
Mm-hmm.
are trying to ride on the coattails of once was. And I think JBL is a truthful company. But let's take a company like Pioneer, for example. It's not like your 1250. What
Yeah.
they're selling now is the illusion of what once was.
Yeah.
And the reissue of the L100, again, we keep coming back to that,
Yeah,
or at
yeah.
least I do. They're cashing in. So they can sell a pair of those for 35 or 4. And
And they can
4,000.
keep them in stock.
Right.
It's a hot seller. Yeah.
Because the people who can afford that now are the people that grew up rolling joints on their Zeppelin album with those speakers. It's. I think people should.
And with the Matt Cell poster. Okay.
Yeah, and the black light,
Yeah.
I think what it is people should not buy or.
Like those double albums.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just, like your Jethro Tull stand up, little guys
Yeah,
pop up.
yeah.
The thing is, I think a lot of people, and quite frankly, I ask customers when they come in, just shooting the shit. Why'd you buy this piece? And well, my dad. It always starts the same way. My
Okay.
dad had one. My uncle had one. We're all guilty of that.
Okay.
I loved Fisher when I was a kid. I couldn't get it. Now I have 18 or 19 of these things.
Yeah.
But
wow.
the thing is that we should not buy equipment for warm, fuzzy feelings. We should buy equipment for its abilities and what it's capable of. And a lot of times, people will buy equipment that they remember as a kid associated with a pleasant experience, and when
Yeah.
they get it, they're
They're
disappointed. And then what happens? They start modifying it, trying to capture what doesn't exist in the first place. So back to JBL,
yeah.
I think people are buying a lot of the new JBL because the heritage of the brand, but it's not the same as it once was. And that can go either way. And I won't say good or bad. I'll leave it up to you to decide. It can go in either direction.
Yeah, well, they don't make stuff like this
No.
L300
No,
anymore
they don't.
anyway, right? So,
Which is why this is.
so in fact, Tom and I were just at Expona, and we talked to the JBL rep for the luxury line, and he mentioned that they're going to reissue some of the JBL Horn-Loader speakers.
There's not pot in here.
Okay.
There's no drugs
well,
in here.
we'll see. We'll
No,
see.
I swear to it. It's just a
We'll
little
see
bit.
how it
little
goes.
bit
No,
nicotine.
I believe you about that. Okay.
Or maybe there is. Let me give you a contact list. I think that's cool if they're looking to maybe expand their product line.
Yeah.
That's cool. But I think people like me, I can only speak for myself. I think you
Yeah.
and Tom and Nigel here and a lot of the people that are probably watching, we want what built the legacy and what made a JBL what it was, going
Greg
all the way
Timber
back.
stuff. Yeah, the Ed May stuff. Yeah, okay.
That's not for everyone. No, people don't want to deal with the upkeep maybe, and maybe it's a little obtrusive, it's a little crazy huge, and they don't want this kind of stuff in their house.
Yeah.
I don't care. I want it.
Okay.
And that's why I use it.
Well, fair enough. I mean, okay, last question. For a newbie, so someone Nigel's age, younger than Nigel, that want to get into JBLs, what would you recommend? You recommend buy some professional monitors
No.
like this, or you
I-
do
I-
DIY maybe?
DIY is fine. I mean, I would almost say take the path that I did. I mean,
Okay.
because it led to this, and as crazy as I am, it might work for you.
Okay.
The 4425 is a musical speaker. It's not abrasive or aggressive.
Oh yeah, that's the small butchie.
Correct.
With a 10
yeah.
inch.
And the 2214
inch.
is arguably by a lot of people is better than even the 128s that are in those.
Oh, okay.
It's a very deep cone. It's a good speaker. I love them. The L100T uses the same driver.
Okay.
And the Yuri 809.
All right.
So the first one to try, not the L100. A lot of people that poo-poo JBL, and they're out there, and that's okay, their experience has been with the L100.
Yeah,
and
that's-
it's a grotesque sounding speaker. Mods or otherwise, it's just not a good sounding speaker to my ears. So my recommendation for somebody, Nigel over here went balls to the wall and went crazy. I mean, he has the means of which to do it, and we have the access to the equipment, so
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah.
But somebody new, just starting out, I would say stick with more of the finesse versions. 4410, 4412, or A, whatever. The
Yeah.
4425 is fine. I think this might be a little disappointing because they don't have a lot of bottom end. I mean,
Yeah.
you're down to 40 hertz and that's it.
Okay.
So they might want a lot of bass. Those will do it.
Okay, the 4412.
Oh, absolutely. Those will go way
Yeah.
lower than these. These are loud.
I have to agree with you. I like the 4410s a lot.
It's a great speaker.
Yeah.
The
and
voicing is the same as this.
I like the L110.
L110?
Yeah.
Same?
Which is very similar to the 4410.
Yeah.
I have a pair of those
They're
that I'm
great
not going to
speakers.
part with.
You don't want to sell them to me?
You already have a pair.
When I have 4.
Okay. we'll talk about that. Okay.
I do trades.
All right. Well, I think that's it. I'm out of questions, Tom. Casper, thank you very much for your honesty. Very enlightening.
Not a problem.
I have a question.
Uh-oh.
When you bought EV, did you get it at GJ's Music Store in Cicero?
No, actually, these came from Gand. Gand up on 94, along with my first pair of Crown PSA 2s.
Oh, God.
Strangely enough.
Okay.
They came from Gand Music out
Right.
in Northfield or whatever it is, somewhere off 94.
know.
They're gone now.
All right.
I used to get mine at DJ's.
Oh, really?
EV stuff, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay. All right.
There it is.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.